Let's talk about it. Let's really get into it. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 7 of Tahari Talks. This episode is specifically for my ladies. I feel like pretty much all of my episodes you can take it and apply it to whichever gender, and there will be some elements of that in this as well. But I'm going to be talking specifically to women and the roles that we play and the way that we are socialized from the very beginning, and specifically moving into wifehood. Wow, this is really ghetto. I'm moving too quick. I don't even got my ring on. I'll be right back. Alright, we're in action now. Let's move on. In today's episode, we'll be talking about 5 things that I'm grateful now that I did before becoming a wife, before becoming somebody's wife, before marrying that man, my man, and choosing to make wifehood my reality for the rest of my life. I don't know why 5 always seems to be the number, 5 reasons why, 5 things, but we're gonna go with it because that's the number I landed on and I didn't want to stretch it, and these are the 5 things that I feel like bring the most value to the conversation that we are about to have. Before we move any further, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and make sure that you're subscribed to Tahari Talks so that you don't miss out on anything on the channel, and also be sure to hit that bell icon so that you don't miss any Tahari Talks uploads. Now, before we get into it, one thing I also do want to say is that I am not saying that these 5 things are mandatory for any woman to do that is seeking wifehood, that is seeking marriage, that aspires to become somebody's wife. These are just 5 things that I personally am grateful that I did before becoming a wife. I'll go ahead and say I'm somebody that always wanted to be married. I always saw myself as somebody's wife, but specifically in my younger 20s, mid 20s, and moving into my early marriage years right before I got married, I kept saying I need to do these things because I don't want to be in my 30s sitting back wishing that I would have. And now being into my younger 30s, not too far into it, but we're there and we're thriving, I can look back and say this is a solid list of things that I'm so glad that I did before marriage. Without further ado, let's move into number 1. The first thing that I'm so grateful that I did before becoming somebody's wife is embark on a spiritual journey. I feel like it is hard to know who you are as somebody's life mate and life partner without first knowing yourself as well as whose you are and where you came from. There was so much unpacking that I had to do as an individual to see what are the things that I just have along with me that I feel like that were imparted to me just because that was the way that I was brought up, and what are the things that I feel really are true to me. I had to embark on a spiritual journey between me and God to figure out what it is that I want out of this life. I had to embark on a spiritual journey so that I could enhance my prayer life, so that I could have better communication with God, so that He could impart in me the things that I needed to take upon my journey of becoming a wife. Because let's be honest, you can want marriage, you can want wifehood, you can be seeking that thing, and God may not be seeking that for you at the time that you're seeking it especially. And so going on a spiritual journey, embarking on a spiritual journey, make sure that everything is in alignment and that you are not moving outside of the will of God, and that you are making sure, again, that you're not wanting something that God doesn't want for you. I saw this TikTok the other day and it was saying that we may want good things. Good things don't necessarily always equate to God things. So marriage can be a good thing, and the person that you're seeking to marry can be a good guy, but it doesn't mean that he's God's guy for you, and it doesn't mean that the marriage will be a God ordained marriage for you to even seek into. And those are the questions that can be answered when you go on a spiritual journey and you peel back the layers of yourself, and then you establish a connection with God to be able to have those communications of, is this the right person for me? Is this the right plan for me? Is this the right timing for me? Is this even in your will for my life at all? My spiritual journey looked very unique, I'll say, because I went through this period where I was just peeling back layers of black and white religion. This is what you're taught. This is Christianity. This is the good book, and you don't steer from it. And then I went through this period of rebellion where I was just super, I'm not religious, I'm only spiritual. And I was just unlearning everything that I had learned in my 18 years of life when I went away to college. And I just went into this period of rebellion where I didn't want to hear anything that was religious. And so after that period, I had to kind of mesh the two together and find my healthy balance of what is my spiritual journey going to look like. Me and Jesus had to have a come to Jesus to where we could mend the relationship that I had broken. Let's be very clear, it was 100% on me, because I felt like Christianity was too black and white and it wasn't something that I wanted to identify with. That's a separate Tahari Talks for another day. Go on your spiritual journey, whatever that looks like for you. Of course, everybody's spiritual journey is going to look a lot different, but embark on one before becoming that man's wife. The second thing that I am so grateful that I did before becoming a wife is going to therapy. I went to therapy 2 different times before I became a wife, before I got married. And I don't mean couples therapy. I mean as an individual. Y'all know I came up in the school of therapy. I am a therapist by education. So naturally, I am pro therapy. I am pro going to sit on the couch, pro getting on that computer. If it's teletherapy that you seek and that suits you, whatever that looks like, I'm 100% for getting therapy. There's so much that we carry with us day to day from our childhoods, trauma. There was trauma that I repressed until I was in grad school and literally sitting in the classroom one day like, oh shoot, that happened, and we're gonna put this name on it because that's what it was. There's so much that we carry with us, and it does us so much good to be able to go and sit across from a professional that can help us unpack it and that can give us an objective point of view that is not our family member, our friend, our pastor, our coach, our mentor, just somebody else that is a licensed and trained professional that can help us to sort our lives out. Go to therapy, friends. I'm all for going to therapy even if you don't need therapy, because we used to say in the therapy world that you don't want to wait until the check engine light comes on. You want to go and make sure that the car is running smooth before it even runs into problems. So go to therapy just to be sure that you don't need therapy. But everybody needs therapy. Let's be real. Go to therapy before you become that man's wife. Moving right on to number 3. The third thing that I am so grateful that I did before becoming a wife, and that I would advise any woman to do, is get to know yourself / spend a lot of time alone. Naturally, I am an introvert, an ambivert, if you will. I can be extroverted in certain scenarios and when I choose to be, but by nature, I am an introvert. I love my solitude. I love spending time alone. In my opinion, there's nothing like it. But I know for some people, that's like, it gives them the ick, the thought of being alone and spending time alone. But there's no other way than spending time alone to figure out what it is that you like, the things that you enjoy. What are your hobbies? What are the things that you will make sure to continue to indulge in outside of your marriage that will keep your sense of individuality? What are the things that spark your interest? What do you like that this man didn't tell you? Like, where do you want to go that somebody said you can't go? What do you want to do that has nothing to do with a partner helping you make the decision that is 100% driven by your internal desires? That could be traveling solo across the world. That could be taking a solo trip to the Starbucks down the street with a good book. You might be somebody that loves to party, so you go out by yourself. You might be somebody that loves art, so you go and do paint and sips, or you like crafts, so you do crafts in your free time. Whatever that looks like, be comfortable spending time alone and getting to know who you are and what you like, so that you're not looking up 5 and 10 years down the line and you're like, who am I? Because naturally, and don't get me wrong, because none of us stay the same, naturally you are going to go through so many transitions as a human being. If you decide to have children later down the line, if you have children, then you already know what that's like. You're rebirthing every time you birth a new human and figuring out what this new version of yourself is like. But when you don't have a core set of what makes me happy, what do I like, what are my interests to constantly return back to, or to repopulate in different ways, or to help evolve in different ways, that's scary. So for me, I'm a creator by nature, so I'm crafty by nature. And so as a child, that looked like drawing and coloring, and then at one point that looked like pottery. And so when I have these moments of postpartum and I'm a wife now and I have all these roles and hats that I have to wear and I need to recenter, I know, okay, creating is something that I enjoy. What is something new that I want to embark on that still aligns with that core value and core interest of, you like creating, maybe you'll like this. And so spending time alone helps you to understand what those base things are that you enjoy. Because a lot of times as wives and as mothers, we pour into our husbands and into our children, and a lot of times that can look like compromising into what they like and what they want to do, or what suits the family the best, or what suits the marriage the best. And so before devoting yourself to those roles and to those missions, you have to take time to get to know you as the individual and what you like, so that you always can return to what those things are if you ever stray too far away from it. Moving right on to number 4. The number 4 thing that I am so glad that I did before becoming anybody's wife, and the number 4 thing that I would advise anyone who is seeking marriage to do, is establish financial independence. Let's talk about it. Let's really get into it. I kind of feel like there isn't that much to be said as it relates to financial independence, but maybe there is. Growing up, my dad always taught me, like, even as far as dating, he always said, make sure, I don't care if you're going out with a friend, I don't care if you're going out with your boyfriend, you need to make sure that when it comes down to it, you have enough money to pay for what you need, do what you need while you're out, and get yourself back home. Financial independence is going to take you very far in life, but especially before becoming somebody's wife. And I can say that confidently as somebody who had a ton of financial independence before my marriage and who has now moved into the role of primarily being a stay-at-home mom, where I depend on my husband a lot more. And young 20s me would have never seen myself in a position of being somebody that depended on my husband as heavily as I do for finances. But because I know that I'm capable of being financially independent, I've done it in the past, those experiences lend themselves to my confidence in being financially dependent on my husband now. As crazy as that sounds, because there's no, like I see a lot of commentary, especially on social media, when women talk about being stay-at-home moms and stay-at-home wives, they're like, if you don't know how to balance a checkbook, then, well, obviously nobody uses checkbooks, but if you don't know how to budget your finances and your bills, God forbid something was to happen to your husband, or if you end up alone, what will you do? Because there was financial independence in the past, I know that, God forbid, if I ever had to do it again completely, then it wouldn't be an issue. Establish your financial independence, learn how to save, build a savings account, get the IRAs, get the savings plans, the retirement plans, the 401ks, all the things. Establish your own financial independence before becoming that man's wife. Yeah, I feel like that really is all that is to it. I'm so glad that I was financially independent before becoming that man's wife. And that leads us right into number 5, the 5th thing that I'm so grateful that I did before becoming somebody's wife. And the 5th thing that I would advise any woman to do before becoming a wife, and y'all might want to tussle on this one because it's 2024 now and things look a lot different than they did 5 or 6 years ago when I was in the transition role of becoming a wife. I'm a strong and firm believer that every woman, of course if this is what you want for yourself, but I believe that every woman should live alone, completely alone, before becoming a man's wife. I also do want to note that I am aware that being able to afford to live on your own in 2024 in the midst of the way the economy is set up is a privilege. If you have the privilege to be able to do so, if you have the means to be able to do so, live on your own. I don't care if it's for one lease for 1 year. For me personally, I moved out of my family's home in the beginning of 2017, and by the fall of 2018 I was married. So I was not doing it long, but while I was doing it, oh my gosh, when I say no regrets, no regrets. I'll never forget, I made the decision that I needed to move out of my parents' house. I was really heavy into beauty content at that time, and I was beginning to work with more companies, like things were picking up for me, and so I needed more space to film. I needed more space to be able to store packages. I needed more peace and quiet to be able to film. I knew that the way my relationship was progressing, that marriage wasn't too far off, but I also knew that I didn't want to go directly from being my parents' daughter and living in their house. Even though I had lived away for 4 years in college while I went away for school, I needed to know what it felt like to live alone as a complete adult that's not a student, that's not living at home with the support of family, as grateful as I am for it, and that's not somebody's wife. I didn't want to be anybody's anything in the terms of where I was living. I didn't want to go directly from being somebody's daughter to being somebody's wife in the same household. One thing I can say that I'm forever grateful for is that my parents never rushed me. I had the luxury of having parents who were very heavy on, as long as you're taking care of your business, we have no problem providing shelter for you because we want you to use this as a launching pad so that when you do leave, you never have to go back. And I'm so grateful that I used it as a launching pad and I have not had to go back. But it was very important for me as a woman, for me as the ambitious woman that I am, the assertive woman that I am, that I lived alone, even if it was only for a lease and a half or 2 leases, to make sure that I was comfortable budgeting my bills, paying my rent, locking up the house, keeping the house clean, maintaining what I needed to maintain completely on my own. That was so vital for me. And I remember during that time, my mom was like, you don't want to live here anymore? Like, why are you rushing into that? Why are you doing that? And I'm like, it's just something I have to do for me. I also remember we had a mentor at the time, an older man that is a husband, and he still does, but he's always rooted for me and my husband as a couple. And when we told him that I was signing a lease, because at the time my husband, who was then my boyfriend, had his own place as well, and he was like, this wasn't a good move, right? This wasn't a smart move. Y'all should have put y'all heads together. Y'all should have put y'all money together and just lived together. And I remember I listened, because I'm always going to listen to the wisdom and take what I need and leave on the table what doesn't apply, because I never want to be remiss in being able to catch gems because I'm being hard-headed. So I listened. But I remember leaving that phone call and still feeling so confident in the decision that I was making for myself that I did not look back. And I always hear women say, that's one thing that I wish that I would have did. I went directly from being somebody's daughter to being somebody's wife, household wise, and I don't know what it's like to budget my own bills and have to pay the rent and have to do this, that, and the third. And for some women, they love the fact that they went from being somebody's daughter to being somebody's wife, and they're okay with that. But for me personally, I just knew that that was not in the plan for me. I needed to be able to manage a household that was solely mine alone. And that is the number one thing that I will forever be grateful that I did before becoming a wife. And that's one thing that I'm going to urge my children, especially my daughter, to do if she's able to before moving into marriage, if that's what she chooses and if that's what she desires for her life. There's nothing like coming home and having your own. There's nothing like coming home to your family. I love the life that I'm living right now. I genuinely do. But looking back, that is one decision that I'm so grateful. I cannot say it enough. So grateful that I made. So that wraps up my 5. If there are any women who are watching who are wives, give me your 5. Give me your top 3, whatever your list looks like. What are some things that you are so grateful that you did before becoming a wife? And what are some things that you wish that you would have done if you have a list of desires? Maybe not regrets, because I don't want anybody, we don't live with regrets. We live with lessons. What are some things that you would, if you could go back and do it all over again? What are some things that you would do before becoming a wife? Also, before we end this video, I do want to urge any woman that is desiring companionship and marriage for her life to enjoy your single season. Enjoy the time that you have before you are embarking on a marriage. You will have the rest of your life to be somebody's everything, to be mommy, to be wife, to be missus, to be babe, to be baby, to be all of the things, and you will be able to give so much better and so much more if you truly enjoy and nurture the time that you have leading up into that, to really take care of yourself. And you will serve yourself so much better if you take the time to really nurture that time that you have to be an individual. It's not a bad thing to take time to get to know who you are, to heal the wounds that you may need to repair before moving into a partnership, to figure out who you are and do some soul searching, to take the time and find new hobbies, find a therapist, live and just figure out you for a little bit. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I also do want to say, in a spiritual sense, be sure that you are not making an idol out of marriage. The reason why marriage may not have come for you yet is because you may be making an idol out of it. And we all know that God does not play like that. He wants no idols. He wants nothing taking his place. So if you're seeking marriage more than you're seeking the Holy Spirit, then you have a problem there in and of itself. And you need to go back to the drawing board and even figure out what that is. Like, why is it that I'm seeking marriage so much more than I'm seeking my connection with God? What is it about the idea of being married that makes me chase it so much? What is it that I think it is? Because you may be thinking of it in one way and it could be something completely different. Because let's be honest, marriage is a great time. It's fun. It's one of the best decisions that I've ever made, but it is work. It is the best and most worth it work that I've ever done in my life, but it is work nonetheless. And you have to make sure that you are putting yourself through training essentially to be able to show up and do that work every single day, because it's constant. You have to make sure that you want marriage for the right reasons. You have to make sure that as much as you want it, it wants you back, so that you're not divorced just as quick as you're married. Because let's be honest, a lot of people just want the fairy tale wedding and the idea of being a bride and the idea of the ring, and they're not even thinking about, how will I show up in my marriage so that it sustains for years and years? How will I make sure that it is a thriving marriage, that it is a healthy marriage? What am I doing right now that will put me in position to be somebody that is able to exist in a healthy and thriving marriage that lasts? I was in a conversation with a friend and she said that she was talking marriage with the wife, and the wife asked her, are you willing to die? And it sounds intense, but you're literally dying to yourself daily so that you can submit yourself to the common goal of what the marriage needs. Not what you need as an individual, not what he needs as an individual, but what the marriage needs and what will serve you both as a couple, that ultimately will serve God the best, because that's really what this is all about. We need less talk about the weddings and more talk about marriages. There are not enough conversations about what will those marriages look like. There are not enough tools given to women to be able to show up in a marriage that thrives. Leading up into my wedding, women had so much advice about the wedding itself, about sex itself, about the lingerie to bring on my honeymoon, but nobody was really talking about how to show up as a wife other than communicate, and make sure you serve that man physically so that he is not deprived. But nobody was really talking about how to make sure that I'm taking care of myself in a marriage, how to make sure that I'm showing up whole in a marriage so that I am not losing myself in the marriage. Nobody's really talking about these things. And that's part of why Tahari Talks exists, because we're going to talk about it. I hope this talk was helpful to you, and I hope that you were able to pull something out of it. As you all know, with every Tahari Talks, we're going to get into a quick 1-2 prayer for all my ladies who know their wives and who are on their way to being wives but haven't quite gotten there yet. We're going to pray and then we're going to close this video on out. I'm so sorry that I'm so nasally, but y'all, the allergies have been beating my whole behind, but we're showing up anyway. Close your eyes, bow your head. Let's get right into it. God, I thank you for every woman who has found their way to this video. I thank you for the information that was shared, the light bulbs that went off in their mind, and the things that may have been confirmed from their prayer time with you that were restated through this video in a different way, or maybe in the same way, to confirm what you have been telling and showing them in their prayer time. God, I thank you for all the future wives who are watching this video. I thank you for giving them peace in their single season. I thank you that they will use their single seasons well. I thank you that they will steward this time that they have to be able to really dive deep into who they are, to really dive deep into their past, to really dive deep into healing any wounds that may need to be tended to. God, I thank you for every woman who is in the period of conditioning herself to become a kingdom wife as you have called her to be. Thank you for the families that will come from these women. I thank you for the marriages that will be birthed, and one part of that 3-string cord will be a woman who is on the other side of this screen. I thank you for her. I thank you for the wisdom that you are constantly imparting onto her life. I thank you for the women that you are establishing in connection with her to be able to serve as mentors. I thank you for the time that she is devoting to becoming better, not only for her husband, but for herself and for you. I ask that you will continue to give her strength and wisdom and continue to guide her path, guide her footsteps for wherever it is that you are taking her. And it's in your name we do pray. Amen. Well, Miss Girl, I hope you enjoyed this video. I love the girl talk feels of Tahari Talks, so we're definitely going to be getting into that more for future episodes. If there's anything in particular that you would like me to cover in future episodes, be sure to leave it in the comments below. And it won't be long before we have another Tahari Talks episode. I do want to preference my next upload by saying that me and a friend of mine who has a platform known as Champagne Convos, we recorded a mashup episode, and we decided to mash up Tahari Talks and Champagne Convos and call it Champagne Talks. We'll be talking about the gender wars, about marriage, about all the things going on in society from the female and male perspective. So that will be my next upload that you will see on the channel. And then from there, we'll be getting into episode 8 of Tahari Talks. Not exactly sure where we'll be going as far as shifting gears for the next topic, but it's going to be good. So be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in. I do not take it lightly that you decided to spend this time with me, and I will see you very soon. Later.